ופתחה עסק משלה. הבולטות, לתת ידע לפעמים שהוא בחינם ולעמוד כדי לתת ערך, זה ערוץ מאוד חשוב שיכול לנתק את עצמכם, והיא עושה את זה מצוין. אז תודה רבה מרדין. עכשיו יש לנו הרצאה באנגלית, הגיע עלינו טורד אוסטומל. ההרצאה תהיה באנגלית, הוא מייצג את עצמו יותר טוב ממני, זה בטוח, פרטנר בפירמה אמריקאית, עוסק בעולמות של הפטנטים, ואני מעביר את הפוליום.
תודה רבה. Two questions to start with. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Second question, does anyone here speak English? Thank God. Okay. I'm just going to talk like this if that's all right. If you don't notice by my accent, I come from America. In America, us Jews are falling into one of three categories. We are either Orthodox, conservative, or Reform. I happen to be of the Reform variety. And what does that mean? It means I only learned Hebrew for my bar mitzvah. So unfortunately, today's talk is going to be in English. I'm a partner at the law firm Squire Patton Boggs. We're a global law firm. We've got 45 offices in 22 countries. Before I went to the dark side and became an attorney, I was a chemist for many years. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I pair my technological background with my legal background to help startups in the Silicon Valley protect their intellectual property. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And since I don't know many of you here, I thought I would just give an introduction to intellectual property. Basically, what are the four categories of intellectual property, what they are, how do you get them, if you get them, how long do they last, and then how can you lose them. And in addition to defining what these things are, I want to just impart a little bit of the value that these tools can give to your business. The way I look at intellectual property is very much like, we had a picture before of a startup toolbox. Intellectual property is a tool. It's a tool that should advance your business interests. And oftentimes people think that they need intellectual property to have a startup, and you might. But just like if you need to go hang a door, you might need a screwdriver as opposed to a hammer, knowing the right tool to advance your business interests is critical. Again, when I talk about intellectual property, usually the first thing that people think about are patents. Patents are kind of the sexy aspect of intellectual property. They're kind of the Ferrari of intellectual property if intellectual property was a car. But patents really protect a very narrow category of inventions, right? To get a patent, you have to have something that's new. It's got to be non-obvious. You've got to clearly describe it. You've got to definitely claim it in a patent. You've got to teach others how to make and use it. And it's got to fall within certain specific subject matter categories. So patents are very nice, but they're very, very narrow categories. And so there's other areas of intellectual property that I want to make you aware about. Because oftentimes I talk to startups and I say, what are your intellectual property assets? And the first thing they tell me are their patents. And they say, that's about it. And after we have a conversation, they start realizing, but they actually also have trade secrets. They probably already have a trademark they're not aware about. And likely everyone in this room that's coding has probably got some copyrights too. And by auditing your intellectual property and understanding all of the assets that you have, you can really maximize the value of your business because all of these assets can be monetized.
Methods of work is also under IP?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So we can. I think the question was, are methods of work falling within intellectual property? And they are. And they can actually be captured by multiple categories of intellectual property. So let me start off with, what's a trademark? Anybody know what a trademark is? Yeah, anybody go to McDonald's? Yeah, those arches, right? That end, that golden arch, right? Some symbol that associates a product with a consumer, right? If I want a Big Mac, I can just go look for that McDonald's arches, and even if I don't speak Hebrew, I know that that establishment is going to sell me the same burger that I could get in Germany or France or the United States. That's a trademark. It's a brand. Is it important to you? Do your customers need to know who you are? Do you need to differentiate yourself from other people in the marketplace? If that's important to you, then you should get a trademark. How do you get a trademark? You get a trademark just by using it. So if you have a name and your company is called Super Cool Company, add a little TM superscript to that name. Boom, you got a trademark. Okay? Now if you want to do something with that trademark, you got to also register it. You got to hire a patent attorney, you got to file an application, you got to clear that trademark, you got to make sure no one else has that trademark, that you can actually use that trademark. For example, trademarks have certain requirements. They can't be descriptive, right? If I sell chairs, I can't have a trademark that's called chairs. I've got to have something that's a little bit different than what I'm actually selling, but associates me with that product. Do you know how long they last? Trademarks can last almost indefinitely, right? So you get them by using them. They can last indefinitely, but you can also lose them if you don't use them. So if you have a trademark, the key thing is to keep on using it. Don't stop using it. The reason is, if you stop using it, potentially someone else might start using that. And if the consumers are ever confused about whether your mark associates your product, that's how you can lose a trademark. What's a copyright? Copyright is an expression of an author. Usually a writing, a book, a movie, coding, but can also be things like a dance performance if I write down the choreography to that dance performance. Okay? Copyrights, how do you get them? Very easy, almost like trademarks. All you got to do is take your idea and fix it in a tangible form. Take a picture of it, write it down, record it on an audio, some tangible form, and boom, you got a trademark. You want to do something with it, copyright, excuse me, thank you. If you want to do something with that copyright, you have to register it. But immediately you get one just by fixing it in tangible form. And by the way, I'm talking about US law. I'm not talking about anybody else's law right now. These are how you get things in the United States. Those are the two categories of intellectual property. What's a patent? Are there multiple kinds of patents? Who thinks there are multiple kinds of patents? You are right. There's actually 3 kinds of patents. There's utility patents, there's design patents, and there's plant patents. I don't think anybody here is probably growing plants, but if you are growing plants, you can get a patent on a new plant species. Okay? If you've got an ornament... What? Monsanto does do that. That's quite, yeah, and they have gotten some pretty bad PR as a result of that, but they do that quite a bit. You can also get what's called a design patent. A design patent is basically if you have an invention and you want to protect the ornamental work of that invention, you can get a design patent. To give you an example, I've got a client that does cryptocurrency, and they've got a special wallet that facilitates the transfer of cryptocurrency. And that wallet is a physical thing that you can hold in your hand, and the thing that you can hold in your hand doesn't actually affect the way that we're doing these cryptocurrency transactions, but it is kind of a nice thing to hold in your hand. It's like an iPhone, makes it really convenient to use. We have both utility patents that cover the cryptocurrency algorithms, and we also have design patents that cover the actual module that you hold in your hand. So plant patents, design patents, excuse me, yeah?
Mentioning all the stuff, if I invented, like how not similar does something needs to be invented in order to say that it's not the same thing?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a gray line. It's actually how I make my living making just that argument. So it's called non-obviousness in America. The rest of the world calls it inventive step, right? So if I have, let's say this chair is known, okay, and I come up with a new chair that only has 3 legs, not 4 legs. So the difference between my chair and this chair is 1 less leg, okay? That means my chair is novel, right? There's something different about my chair than what has already been known. And then the question is, what you're asking is that obvious? Does that difference matter? Does that difference impart anything unexpected to this chair? Anything surprising, anything beneficial? And if it can, I can get you a patent on that 3-legged chair. So honestly, most patent attorneys in America make their living making non-obviousness arguments with patent offices around the world. I advocate on the behalf of startups to say, this incremental difference that this startup made is worth a patent. Because most inventions are pretty much incremental advancements on what has already been known. Not many people are Einsteins. Most people are building off of the work of people that have gone before them.
And you said there's design patents and there's utility patents.
Yeah.
So they do like UX and UI inventions fall into. Like I know Tinder, for example, patented the swipe.
Yep.
Which I'm surprised no one's following.
Yeah, yeah.
Where does that fall? Is it a utility or is it design?
Utility, utility. If it's functional, it's a utility patent. If it does something, it's a utility patent. If it's useful, it's a utility patent. If it's pretty, if it just looks decorative, if it's artistic, design patent.
And would you touch later about like how Tinder, for example, is a big company.
Yeah.
They patent this, but everyone else is still using it.
That's right.
Would you touch how is that possible?
Yeah.
They have the money to protect it.
Yeah. So I mean, I get the sense from people I've talked to today. A lot of people here are in the software space, and with software patents, you're pretty much patenting the steps that your algorithm takes to perform your function, right? As a result, those patents tend to be relatively easy to engineer around. right? If I just take one step out, or if I do one step a little bit differently, then I'm not doing your patent. If your patent says step forward, step left, and step back, right, and I just first do a double hop, and then I step and a double hop, I'm not doing your patent, right? I'm doing something a little bit different.
So why do patents in software companies? Why bother?
Why patents?
Why bother? In
Why?
software companies, why would you bother patenting software which is really easy to circumvent and also very hard to prosecute?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, it's very industry dependent. It depends on what your company is doing. Are you worried about competition? A patent gives you the right to exclude someone from your area.
But how would you find out that they are violating your patent?
Yeah, I mean,
it's really hard to find out.
You've got to buy their software, you've got to reverse engineer, you've got to take discovery. In America, we're far more litigious. So if I have an inkling, if I have some good reason to think you might be infringing, I can sue you, and then we get what's called discovery, and I can get some evidence that maybe you're actually infringing my patent. But it's certainly not easy. And I think, David, what you're making your point is patents are expensive. They're really expensive. Typical patent applications cost about $10,000 to write, $50,000 to prosecute. But even if you get a patent, it costs about $1 million to sue on them to go to trial. Okay? So when I hear about intellectual property, a common refrain I hear from startups is that they waste their money on intellectual property. And the idea is, if you spend $1 million, but you didn't need to spend $1 million, yeah, you wasted your money. Okay, but if you're doing something that you think Cisco is going to copy, right? If you're Oracle, and you think Cisco is going to copy something you're doing or vice versa, and you've got the money to go to bat, that might be worth doing it. But if you're a startup and you're pretty low on cash, you got to think long and hard about whether you really need a patent, right?
Just like a gladiators game, it's just about being stronger and just eliminating more competition from being able to do anything.
If that's what your business model determines, right? It depends on what your business determines. There isn't a one-size-fits-all, and I hope that's what you take away from my talk today, that not everybody needs a patent. Some people need a patent. Tinder thought they needed a patent. Tinder's also very well financed, right? So to them, it was an expense worth having.
If you don't go for a patent, you can just go for copyright, or is it not?
Well, they protect different things. They're different bundles of rights. So what a patent protects you is the right to exclude others, right? I get to define an area and say, everybody get out of my area. This is my patent. You cannot be in this area unless you pay me money, or you get a license, or you buy my company. A copyright, what it protects is somebody from copying your work, from expressing your work, from performing your work, displaying your work, right? Patents are the right to exclude someone from making, using, selling, offering to sell, or importing. Okay, you're excluding someone from making your invention, using your invention, selling your invention, offering to sell your invention, or importing your invention. That's what a patent gets you. But a copyright is the right to prevent someone from just copying you, right? Someone could copy my book, and they're not actually selling that book, they're not importing that book, but they're copying that book, right? Or if I make a new dance move, and I choreography that dance move, and Miley Cyrus takes my dance move and goes off on tour and starts making millions of dollars doing the jig that I taught her how to do, right? She's infringing my copyright. I taught her how to dance. I do not dance. I have a PhD. I'm a chemist. We don't dance. The last category of intellectual property are trade secrets. Sorry, yeah?
If someone I invented something, and then he took my idea and he invented, and he did a patent on it, then he can exclude me, take the idea from me.
Yeah. Well,
or if I'll say I started before him, so I'll prove it historically.
Up until 2015, if you were the first person to invent, then in America I could get you a patent, because we used to be a country that said the first person to invent is the one that gets the patent. America was an outlier. Everybody else in the world said the person that gets the patent is the first person to file that patent application. And after 2015, the United States said, you know what? We're going to go along with the rest of the world. We're now also a first-to-file country. So you got to file first if you want to have your patent. And maybe I'll just add one thing, because I have all these prepared remarks, but I actually appreciate the discussion much more. Sometimes the most cost-effective thing a startup can do is to publish their ideas in a way that prevents anybody else from getting a patent themselves. So we often do something that's called defensive publication. We'll write a patent application that we have no intention of actually prosecuting, but we want to disclose just enough ideas that nobody else can get a patent in this field too. It's kind of like burning down the forest. It's one of the cheapest ways to ensure that you've got freedom to operate, and if somebody else is working in that field, they can't leapfrog you and get a patent on top of you. Because some people say, well, I don't want to get a patent, I don't want to spend that money, and I'm just going to stay in my silo and work really hard. But then lo and behold, someone in South Korea or China comes up with that same invention that you didn't know about, and now you say, well, they got a patent, but I've been working on this for 10 years. That's unfortunate.
How publicly available does it need to be when you publish it? Does it have to be like completely on Reddit, or can it be in a semi-closed, I don't know. You have to publish it.
You can start Israel.
Yeah, it depends on the technology. It basically goes back to what your conversation was too. You want to publish enough that anybody that makes an incremental advancement is an immaterial advancement.
Not wondering about the content, but the platform in which it should be published.
Oh, how should it be published? Yeah. So you can publish it anyway. The law says publicly available anywhere, meaning you could just take a website and publish your idea, and now that idea is publicly disclosed. It's usually not how I do it. The way I usually do it is I write a patent application, and the reason that I do that is because patent applications are the first thing that patent examiners find. So if some other company files for a patent application, yeah, your website might prevent them from getting a patent because it was publicly disclosed, but that assumes that the examiner finds your website. And if the examiner doesn't find your website, he or she might allow the patent. And once you get an issued patent, I can still invalidate that patent by showing evidence that your website was published beforehand, but it gets much more expensive once the patent is issued. So to cut it off in the beginning, to make sure that nobody else can get a patent, I do a defensive publication, I file a patent application, that thing publishes. That's the first thing patent offices find around the world.
File a provisional and abandon it.
I file a non-provisional. Provisionals do not publish. Yeah, so I file a non-provisional, and I get that to publish, and that's my defensive.
Still spend some money, but not a lot.
That's right, and it can be a lot cheaper because if we have no intention of prosecuting that application, I don't need to put in all the bells and whistles that I know I might need down the road during examination. I just need the bare minimum so that Oracle can't do anything in this area, or what have you.
Isn't that in country specific?
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah, patents are monopolies granted by countries. If you got a US patent, it means nothing in Israel. If you have an Israeli patent, it means nothing in the United States. So that also adds up your cost, because you start thinking about patents, you got to have filings in every jurisdiction that matters. And so we have to do a lot of cost analysis where we will say, I'll wrap this up in a sec, that we do a lot of cost effective. We can actually project your costs and say how much would it cost to get a patent in Italy, for example. And then we can evaluate the market and say how much money do you think you're going to make in Italy, right? And if it doesn't seem commensurate, you probably don't need an Italian patent.
But the last question, we can, Todd will stay after that.
I'll be around all of the, yeah.
I meant, כולם, כל בעצם הדוברים יישארו, מי שזימן, אז יהיה לו עדיפות כמובן, אבל אולי יש, לטוד נשארו רק 3, אז אני מאמין שיהיה זמן בכל לשבת איתו. Okay, so the last question, please.
Anyone, please.
Started.
I was going to say, like, what happens if I didn't put a patent in Italy, they develop it over there, and then they start marketing it in the U.S. where I do have a patent?
Well, they cannot, if you have a U.S. patent and they start marketing it, then you can sue them for marketing in the United States. Now, if you publish your idea, they can't get a patent anywhere. Italy is a first-to-file country just like the United States. Italy is actually a member of what's called the European Patent Office, so all the European countries play the same way. So if I do the defensive publication, I can prevent a patent worldwide, and if they get their Italian patent for some other reason, they can't do anything with it in the United States. And if I do have a U.S. patent and they try to market it, that's one of the things that a patent lets you prevent someone from doing, offering to sell. All right, toda rabah.
Thank you very much, Todd.